Hey, welcome to Comparative World Religions on our second lesson in Judaism. Our first lesson really in Judaism, but second lesson overall for this semester. So here you have several different emblems, symbols of Judaism's different activities and their different religious celebrations. And notably, you'll see the candlesticks are different. There's the seven candled candlestick that comes from the temple area and the temple, the time of the temple. And then they have the 9 candles that represents something much later. So, this is the most common one now. You have the Star of David, you have the yarmulke, and other items as well, their dreidel and some of their foods that they eat at some of these activities and celebrations. So going on, just as a reminder, Judaism started in the Middle East. Some people will add other countries to the Middle East. Turkey is above here, Egypt is here, Sudan is down here. This is Pakistan and Afghanistan. India would be further to that side, to the right or east if you're looking on as a map. Saudi Arabia is the larger one here, Iran. Um, this is what we're looking at right here. Israel and modern day Palestine. There's 3 parts to Palestine, not that it really matters, but a smaller group, smaller country of other than Israel is Lebanon right there. This is Jordan. Amman, Jordan is the main city there, and this is Oman. It's a different country altogether. Just give you some little background. Some of it we've already seen, maybe, but the 3 Western religions all started here in the Middle East. And the rest of the religions we'll be talking about basically started in the East, in India and China. And here's Japan, clear over there for Shinto. So denominations versus religion. There's different way of designating groups that worship, and there's some distinguishing features. What I would like to point out is that Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, being the Western religions, are on top here, but they are separate religions. And then when we come to the other side, we have some denominations within those religions. So Methodism, Baptist, Catholic, Christian, Episcopalian, and there's Presbyterian, Lutheran, and all sorts of other kinds. There's Orthodox, there's Catholic, there's Protestant. Those are the 3 major breakdowns. But nonetheless, these are different denominational groups of the religion of Christianity. And then these are also different denominational groups of their set religions. These are from Hinduism, and at the bottom we have some from Judaism. Judaism, again, the symbol is the most important one, probably is this candlestick. This is their flag of the day. This is a patch that soldiers wear, 10 Commandments, and the Star of David. And then down here you have an etching that is found in the it's an Arch of Titus just outside of Rome, and this was put up around 73 or so AD, and after maybe later, maybe 80 something, I don't remember, but this particular etching is is in the arch, and this is the temple candlestick found that they would have used in the temple is 1 piece of solid gold, weighed about 80 pounds, over 50 pounds of 1 piece of gold. And it's depicted on many different things. That's the very beginnings of Judaism, and we're going to be looking at these. It's the oldest of the world's three greatest monotheistic religions, and is the oldest of the Western religions for sure. It's also the smallest. It's only about 14, 15 million people around the world. And the real question is, who's the Jew? Most people that are Jews in the world would probably practice Judaism and at least identify as that in some way, but in the Jewish European American population, most Jewish people now actually live in Israel. Many, about the other half, live in the United States, but the largest European Jewish community there is France. And then we have a very small percentage of the world's population are Jewish, less than 0.2%. Yet, since the Nobel Prizes have been awarded in 1969, Jews have received 22% of the awards, and they are more highly represented than other nations that are so small for sure. But I think it reflects a little bit of the blessing that their God said that they would be to the whole world. There is around, according to this map, a little less than 14 million people, and you can pause this and take a look at where a lot of different Jews live. But this gives you a small idea. And then we're going to look at, we're going to go counterclockwise starting at the top here with God. These are very important. There are 6 of them, 6 beliefs. They believe in the God of Abraham. They use the holy book, the Tanakh. It is what we would consider, many people would consider the Old Testament. They do not like that term. It's the only testament to them. Their key beliefs here are seen here. They do believe God is one. They observe the 10 Commandments. The Jews are God's chosen, and Moses is the most important prophet, and God gave him the Torah, and so wrote it down. There are different groups. There's probably another sect that, and we'll talk about later besides these 3, Orthodox, Conservative, and Reform are 3 major ones. And then they take place in the synagogues led by a rabbi, consists of prayer, readings, and a sermon. And it's probably done on the Sabbath. Some of their holy days may be done at other places, other times, but the Sabbath is our Saturday. And then their practices is observing the Saturday, or the Sabbath, we'll call it, Sabbat. Kosher, that is their food, what they should and should not eat. They attend synagogue, Yom Kippur, and there's some holy days that are very important to them, and we'll be looking at those. 3 periods of Jewish history, as seen in this video. Our book does not depict them quite like this, but this is what I'm going to be testing on and going by. There's the biblical history of Judaism that starts with Abraham, so these letters may be confusing to you. CE stands for the current era, or some might call it the common time frame. That's what it stands for. And the AM is before the common era. They have a BCE, before the common era here. This is run down in Jewish history. They think Abraham was born about 1948 BC, if you will. And then their calendar starts from the beginning of creation. So you'll see in the smaller letters here that their calendars in 2024, their year is 5784 until Rosh Hashanah, and it'll be 5785, which is around September, October time each year. So it changes, obviously. Then there's the rabbinical Judaism. It started around 100 AD, 100, yeah, AD, but it's the Common Era to the 1800s. And then the third one is the Reform from the 1800s to the present. And there's several ways of looking at the different ways that they break down time periods. Biblical Judaism, again, around 800 BCE to 70 CE, then the common area is when the destruction of their temple was, and really of Jerusalem as a whole. They were taken into exile and spread and lost their nation by the Romans at around 70 CE. And then the rabbinical Judaism is from that time. They instead of focusing on the temple as they did before, now they just focus on the rabbis, because there is no temple in Jerusalem. In fact, the Temple Mount is filled with a Islamic holy site. And then another way of looking at Judaism, biblical Judaism, they're looking at the 18th century up to about the 5th, 6th century BCE, because that's when they were exiled. And then there's the Second Temple period, when they came back from that exile around Nehemiah, Ezra, and they rebuilt the temple. So they have the first biblical period, the first temple period, and then the second temple period, and then they have the rabbinical Judaism, starting after the temple was destroyed. And then some would maybe call it the rabbinic age. But anyway, there you have some different ideas. I think it'll be really clear. I'll make sure in the questions that I ask, you'll understand how to answer it. Who is a Jew? And this is a common question. Who are they? Is it a religion? Is it Jewish a genealogy? Or is it a people group? What is it? It's a practice. Who practices Judaism? It can be all of these or any of these. Are not really too concerned. There are Jews of all kinds around the world, but they are certainly cultural, ethnic, personal, religious, political, genealogical, and so on. And they live here. Many of them do. This is the whiter, lighter color there in the middle where my dot was right there is the West Bank. Gaza Strip is over here, just a tiny little dot, about the size of a couple counties of Kansas. And then the Golan Heights are up here, same thing. They're not very big. No one really knows, are they Syria or are they Israel? But they still fight about some of these things. So modern Israel is pretty small, about 1/3 the size of our state of Maine. And we'll see in the next, it's not very big. But about the time you take away Palestine out of Israel, it's about the size of New Jersey. So it's not much difference. You see here the differences between New Jersey and Israel. Take out the West Bank, then they're about the same size. This gives again just a reference to the birth of the man Abraham. And you can go on the calendar, this is the way they do their calendars at Chabad.org and kind of see. And they have a lot of different practices for their holy days and celebrations that they do, and why they date. They really date things around we go with the longest time of the year, and the equinoxes where we have the exact same amount of day and light and night, and then we go to the extreme of that when it's super dark, more time of the day. That's kind of where we are looking. We have just a set calendar year, and we follow the sun pattern. And Jews do too, to an extent, but for them it's the way they date, so it kind of floats in the way we see it. It's not always May 1st, for whatever religion. It scoots around because of the way they see the moon, and it's the full moon after the first full moon after something else, and that sort of thing. At any rate, their dating is challenging for us. For me, I have to think about it. But going on. There are three essential elements in Judaism. The first one is the one they worship, that is God. They have different terms for him. They call him Hashem. They don't want to say God. They'll never spell God, so they'll leave this O out and put an underline, at least in English. They'll do the same thing. They'll say Hashem in Hebrew. And there's a term called it by, thank you to the Germans, the tetragrammaton. But that is the four-lettered name of God. This is a Yod, He, Vav, He. And in Hebrew, they would say Yahweh, but they don't like to say the name because they're scared they're going to break that third commandment and desecrate the name of God. So they don't. They say Hashem instead. And sometimes they'll have another word for it. But that's the most important element of worship and of importance in Judaism is their God. And the next is the Torah. And it's really the law, which is the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, as we would see it in Jewish eyes. And the Torah is complete with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Now, the Hebrew Bible as a whole, beyond those first 5 books, which are the Torah as a whole, it's called the Tanakh. And then the third most important thing, element of Israel is the name, God's chosen people. And I would want to point out for them, it's not just the descendants of Abraham, because God gave the same promise in their traditions and in their Torah and in the rest of the Bible. For them, God gave the promise to Abraham, then he gave the same promise to Isaac and the same promise to Jacob. All the people living in the Middle East will claim Abraham as their father. The Jews will, the Arabs will, many Christians will in that area. But only the kids, the chosen from Jacob, which his name became Israel, is really truly Israel. This is again the Yod, He, Vav, He, and so Hebrew is spoken from right to left. It makes it confusing sometimes. We speak from left to right. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, and this is the word here. The Lord is the name Yahweh of thy God. Elohim is another word. They are not interchangeable. Often we use them as such. They have different meanings, connotations, but Lord with capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D in the English translations of the Bible, most of the time they'll capitalize all those letters, and that is what is coming from the name Yahweh. Yahweh. From English, I guess it's from left to right. Here's some other names. What is in a name? The Lord capital again is Yahweh. Then there's a Lord with a capital L but lowercase ORDs, and this is the Adonai. And I mentioned earlier, sometimes they'll call him something else. They'll say Adonai instead of Yahweh. They rarely use Yahweh because they're taught from a very early age not to ever use the name because they don't want to misuse it. Almighty, Sabaoth, we'll hear these, Shaddai and Elohim for God. It's kind of a plural of El. This simple term means God. El does. It never once in the whole book of their Bible does that refer to their worshiped God. It always refers to another. Elohim is a kind of a plural of their worship God. Im, the Yod Mu, is their plural ending for words in Hebrew. But Elohim is how it's translated as God into, into English. Okay. The Tanakh is made up of 3 sections. The Torah, where the T comes from. The Nevi'im, which are the prophets, so they divide theirs a little bit differently than the way you may be used to if you've ever read or looked at the Bible. The Ketuvim is the last one, is the writings. They're a little bit different than the English and Christian Bible as far as the way they're listed and the way they're combined. As for instance, 1st and 2nd Samuel is just Samuel. Ezra and Nehemiah is just Ezra. 1st and 2nd Kings is just Kings. 1st and 2nd Chronicles is just Chronicles. We give them 39 books, and I don't remember how many books they mention in their Bible, but it's just listed differently. It all contains the same information. The Jewish Bible is the Tanakh. And they use it. The Torah is seen as a very important part of their history, who they love, and how they worship and how they celebrate. And sometimes the Torah is referred to as specifically the first 5 books, or it may be all of the books. And this is a young man coming out of his bar mitzvah. There is also a bat mitzvah, and we'll look at that just for the girls. Nothing really different, but they teach them the Torah as well. There's another breakdown looking at the Hebrew Scriptures, the first 5 books, the Nevi'im, which are the prophets, contains Jeremiah and the Judges and Samuel, Ezekiel, and Isaiah. And then also contains the 12. They'll call them the 12, what we call maybe the minor prophets, but they're all together. Lamentations is not in that group. And the book of Proverbs, Psalms, Proverbs, and Job, they're a little bit in different order. And they end in the whole book of the Tanakh. It ends with Chronicles. That's what this is here. It does not end in the 12. Malachi is what some people might say it ends with. It is not in the Hebrew word, the Hebrew Scriptures. And then they also consider very highly works called the Talmud and the Midrash. And those are very important, and we'll look at the Talmud as we get to it. The Israelites, given the name of their father of the 12 tribes, his name was Jacob early on, and there's some passages there if you wanted to look at that. But Abraham, he was born, had a son named Isaac. Abraham also had Ishmael. He also had Zimran and Jokshan and Midan and Midian, Ishbak and Shua. But those are names of Keturah, his second wife. But the most important one is Isaac, as far as Abraham goes. I suspect Abraham had 20 children or more. He had concubines as well. But his son Isaac is who the promises are through, and then it uses the same promises and says through his son Jacob, not Esau. If you know, Isaac had twins, and through Rebekah, and the twins were Jacob and Esau, or rather should say Esau and Jacob. Esau came out first, Jacob came out second, but Jacob is who the promises are through. And he changed his name from Jacob. God did. Jacob didn't decide to change his name. I have a grandpa, a great-great-grandpa, that changed the name of our last name, spelling. Just after the Civil War, he changed it, and everything since then has been different. Jacob changed his name. Jacob did not change his name. God changed the name of Jacob for him and called him Israel, meaning your name will be struggle with man and God and have overcome. So he struggled with man and God and overcome them, and it's through him that the promises come. And the most prominent men, I believe this is the last slide of this video that I want you to know about, is that Abraham, Moses, and David. Abraham being the forefather, the beginning really of Israel, and Moses being the great prophet, and David being the great king. And so that's what we have in this particular program, and then you'll see more later. Oh, this is the Star of David. And now that's the end.